definition, a Republican can behave in really outrageous ways, and Trump's not the only one out there acting in outrageous ways right now, and they can get away with it, while a Democrat always has to be squeaky clean and always has to triple prove themselves. And I think, one of the things you keep seeing when you hear people say, well, can you imagine if Obama had, or can you imagine if Biden had? And the bottom line is they wouldn't have done those things. But anybody who saw any other president, any Democratic president anyway, acting in the way Trump is acting, would be all over it. And that's in the media. And that's also, I think, in the Democratic Party as well as in the Republican Party. And I just feel like we got to have front and center that the Republicans have put in charge of the United States of America, in the most powerful position in the freaking world, a man who is not able to fulfill the duties and the responsibilities of that office. And there is some great level of simply pretending that he's okay, and he's not. So I wanted to start there, and obviously feel free to disagree with me, but my evidence is coming from watching him, not as a doctor, but just as a human being, and from reading that Truth Social account, from reading that Trump's Truth account, trumpstruth.org account, that makes a record of the things that he has posted or that have been posted in his name on Truth Social. So I wanted to start there because, again, I think that presumption that it's okay if a Republican does things that are bonkers, where it's not okay when a Democrat says anything out of line or, floats an idea that might not be popular. I think that really matters. And I think that matters a lot for our voting patterns, and it matters a lot for the way we think about the country. So I wanted to start by calling that out, and then do just a little bit of some of the things that are in the news to show what that means. And just so you know, I don't know about you, but I am finding it extremely difficult to follow the news here in the summer of 2026, because there's so much coming at us all the time. And one of the things that it's very, very hard to wrap your mind around, and I'll get to that in just a minute, is the degree to which our world is changing by the people who are changing regulations that we might not really be focusing on. Because for the most part, at least I anyway, and I assume a lot of you, sort of have general ideas about what the laws of historic preservation are. Generally we like to preserve historic. It's hard to get something called a historic monument, for example. We sort of have these general ideas, but what the administration has been doing really all along, but really taking off lately, is changing pieces of those laws that most of us don't even know existed. We didn't really think about how those things work. And we're seeing that now in a real attempt, for example, to rework the way we understand historic monuments. I've written about that before, so I'm not going to talk about it today. I'm going to give you new material today. But that idea of changing pieces of things is really changing our world a lot, and very hard to follow. So that's going along. At the same time, we also have the war in Iran. We have the problems in the economy, the various outrages that the administration is committing against immigrants or descendants of immigrants. We've got, just this attacks on our national forests, and we just have stuff coming in. And so it's really hard to make sense of it. So what I'm trying to do today is give you sort of a bigger picture for the ways to think about some of the specific things that are happening. All right, so with somebody in the White House whose primary interest seems to be to enrich himself and his cronies, including his family, and there's tons of articles about that now coming out every day, the degree to which the Trump family has enriched itself. What we are not seeing in the actions of the administration is anything that's particularly successful for the American people. And let me give you some specifics here. So one of the things that you think about this era, what is the one thing Trump has been really successful at in his second? He did one thing. He cut taxes for the very wealthy and corporations. And he has opened up a lot of avenues for very wealthy people to make money. And he's cut regulations. But what he's really done is he's cut those taxes. Okay, put a pin in that, because he has been very successful at helping very wealthy people, but not so much everybody else. So one of the stories that I have been watching all along is, if you recall, on September 2nd of 2025, the administration began to attack small boats in the Caribbean, apparently coming from Venezuela, although they come from other countries as well, and also small boats in the Eastern Pacific, right in that area, that sort of circle that you push down on that area of the globe. And the argument on the part of the administration has been that people in those boats are drug traffickers, and that they are hitting what they call narco terrorists. But they've never produced any evidence at all. And the people who are, the people who've been killed in those, their family members have stepped up to say he was a fisherman, And none of this has played out in courts yet. But one of the arguments that the administration made was that these attacks on these boats would stop the flow of drugs into the country. And the news broke, I think it was today or yesterday, that in fact the agents who are responsible for tracking the flow of drugs into the United States says it has had no effect at all. Basically, people who are bringing drugs into the country are simply using alternative routes, which kind of makes sense. And at the same time, you have the increasing understanding of the legal community that the attacks on these boats are extra legal, they're extrajudicial, that is, they could be and probably are murders, and possibly some of them are war crimes. And that's just hanging out there. And the degree to which we're really not paying attention to it seems somewhat problematic. But where I'm going with this is that the U.S. military has been striking these small boats. They've been killing the people in these small boats. They've been destroying the boats and killing these people. And it's been expensive, and it is, almost, I'm not a lawyer. It is certainly has the hallmarks of murder and possibly war crimes. And we now know, almost a year into this, that I believe there's more than 200 people who have been killed, that it doesn't appear to have done anything at all. And you look at that and you think, this was not a good policy. No matter how you slice it, this was not a good policy. If indeed its intention was to stop drugs coming to the United States. I think you always have to keep open the possibility anytime you see something like this, that there was actually another intention, that whatever that their goals were something different than what they told people, because it just logically doesn't make sense that you would continue to do something that was failed unless you had a different goal. But in terms of the American people, the idea that they have protected us from the onslaught of cocaine in this case, although they implied it was meth, I think. Yes. No, fentanyl. They implied it was fentanyl, but it was always cocaine. The fentanyl doesn't come from Venezuela. I'm not going to go into where the drugs come from, but it's cocaine that they were hitting, although they alluded to the fentanyl crisis in the United States to try and make people think that's what they were talking about. In this particular case, it has not done what they said they were going to do. So that was the story in the news that I've been watching. But then there was also the story of Iran. And the story of Iran is really interesting because that's a place where the Trump administration, led by Donald Trump, of course, decided to take matters into their own hands and launch a war of choice. That is, under our Constitution, the Congress is supposed to have the final say on whether or not the United States engages in war. And under the 1973 War Powers Act, the president can respond to an imminent threat that does not have time to go before Congress, so long as he notifies Congress in writing within 2 days. And then he's got 60 days to get the troops out of there or to get congressional permission to continue. And of course, what Trump has done there is he said that there was an imminent threat from Iran, even though his advisors said there was not. And then he, when the 60 days was up for the War Powers invocation that he had made on March 2nd, and that day was up on May 1st, he simply said, oh, well, this was over on April 7th when I said there was a ceasefire, even though we were still engaging in a blockade, which is an act of war, and there was still firing going on. And therefore, I don't need congressional approval. And then he turned around within the last couple of weeks and gave Congress another notification of the War Powers Act, saying this is a different engagement, which is, just honestly ridiculous. I'm sorry. That's a case where, I'm going to weigh in as a historian. You don't get to continue the same war and just put a new name on it and say, this gets me around the War Powers Act. But the whole idea behind this was he expected that there would be a quick, easy payoff, that America would be able to reorganize the Iranian leadership and probably gain access to Iranian oil the same way the United States appears to have done with Venezuela. The opaqueness of all these deals is just killing me as a historian, by the way, but it appears we're taking a significant amount of oil and money out of Venezuela. Nobody knows where it's going. Trump said today that it was going into running the country, but so far it appears that the United States has reinvested about $300 million into Venezuela after the terrible, terrible natural disaster there of a few weeks ago. But there's no record of where any of that other many billions of dollars has gone. So apparently he wanted to do something similar in Iran, and that's of course not how it played out. So there's been news today in Iran that is, I've said to you a lot of times and talked about this. I mean, the issue of Iran is really interesting because Trump has always had someone to fix him. He's always had somebody who can pick up the pieces and can turn things okay after he's screwed up. His father, Alan Weisselberg, who was the chief financial officer of the Trump Organization, the adults in the room in his first term who literally took papers off his desk so he didn't do stupid things. He doesn't have that now, and he has gotten himself in a colossal mess in Iran. By the way, he's gotten the United States in there too. There's that old expression about having your tail in a crack, and boy, does he have his tail in a crack in Iran. Unfortunately, so does the United States. But there's news that has broken within the last day that the United States is actually running low on the kinds of ammunition we need in a number of different places because not only of Trump's strikes on Iran, his extraordinary strikes on Iran, but also on, I think it's 8 other countries that he has struck since he has been in office. And that idea that he has run us low on ammunition for his wars, for his strikes, is, I think speaks back to whether or not this is good for the United States of America. Did it help us to strike Yemen when the Houthis, in fact, did not back off on their attacks and are now once again threatening shipping that is going through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait? Or whether it was worth it for us to attack some of the other countries that he has chosen to attack. I think there's about 8 of them, and off the top of my mind, I can't give them all to you, and I'm worried I'm going to say the wrong ones, so I'm not giving you any of the ones I think I can remember. But if you're looking for a president who's helping the American people, the idea that we're low on ammunition is problematic. And the administration says, no, that's not true. Anybody who is saying that is a traitor, that's not, or is giving you bad information, that's not true. But it was a pretty well-sourced story. But then there's another piece of this, and that is as of today, which is July 28th, there has been a new report on the actual numbers of deaths and casualties. And once again, just to be clear, this is something a lot of people get confused. There are war deaths and there are casualties, and casualties are people who are wounded during a war. And you hear this all the time when you're studying the Civil War. People get confused between casualties and dead. So in Iran now, the administration revised its numbers today. Because remember, earlier this week, they took away 4 deaths associated with the war in Iran. One was in Iraq and 3 were in Jordan, associated with the war in Iran, and said, no, those aren't actually war deaths because they happened after the ceasefire. And then they backed off on that, but they got a lot of pushback on that. So as of today, they've put those 4 dead back into the number of troops that have died. It is back up to 18 troops that have died in that war. But then they also said that another 624 have been wounded. Now, until then, the numbers that they said were wounded were 482. Significant increase in numbers of wounded. And those wounded, we know from a earlier report, they have said that they were not seriously wounded, but then they later explained that to be not in order to be considered seriously wounded or very seriously injured by the Army, you had to be within danger of dying in the next 72 hours. So to say somebody's not seriously wounded essentially means that they're not expecting them to die in the next 72 hours, which is a different standard than people think of when they hear seriously wounded. There's millions of us who are in that. So they've had to increase that number. And again, it's very unclear how we are going to get out of that Iran war. What is not unclear, though, is how badly it's hurt the United States to be tied into this war. And it's really not clear to see how we're going to get out of that war. But then there's a couple other places that the administration is weirdly not serving the American people. And by weirdly, I don't mean, I do think you can argue that most other presidents, not all of them, but most other presidents might have done stuff you didn't like. And there certainly ones that did stuff I didn't like. But they could at least make an argument that what they were doing was good for the American people. And Trump just abandoned that. So the other big story of the last week is the reimposition, I think it was on Friday, of more tariffs. Now, if you remember, the Supreme Court struck down Trump's tariffs of April 2nd, 2025, those Liberation Day tariffs, because they said they were unconstitutional. And that matters a lot, because the reason they said they were unconstitutional is because quite literally, the United States Constitution establishes that Congress and Congress alone can engage in revenue measures. So the Congress, Article 1, Section 8 reads, the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. It's the Congress. The president does not have that power. So when the Supreme Court said to him, dude, you can't do this, I paraphrase, by the way, he instantly flipped to a different tariff law that he could use for 150 days in times of the international financial crisis. And then when that ran on Friday, he flipped to a different way to impose tariffs that said that he could impose tariffs against people who were using forced labor, cheap labor to force goods. And he said that 4%. He said almost all of the goods that were coming to the United States, according to him, were products of this forced labor. He was doing the tariffs because, and I just love the comment from the White House that he'd always cared deeply about. Here we go. He said, forced labor is something that President Trump has been focused on for many years. I missed that, I have to say. But what you're seeing here is him very deliberately taking the power of Congress to levy tariffs. Tariffs are taxes, and that's really interesting because the question is that we kind of danced around is why does he want these tariffs so bad? And they talk a lot, the White House talks a lot about how it's going to grow American manufacturing, and that's not wrong. There are certain ways in which you can think of Joe Biden taking some of the tariffs in his first term in order to protect the American electric battery markets, so you could develop those factories without competition. But what has happened under Trump is you've got these all over the map tariffs, so that in fact manufacturing development is not happening at all because you don't know what to invest in. It's such a mess that manufacturing is actually down under Trump fairly significantly. So why is he doing this? And one of the things that he said repeatedly on the campaign trail was that tariffs could replace income taxes. And this was actually, I'm going to go a little bit into the weeds here. This is actually a thing when the Democrats under Woodrow Wilson in 1913 passed the 1913 Revenue Act. The Republicans went ballistic. And the reason they went ballistic is because in that 1913 Revenue Act, the Democrats lowered the tariffs and they replaced the income with the income tax. They replaced the missing revenue. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use the word income there. They replaced the missing revenue with the income tax. And to this day, there are people who insist that the Revenue Act of 1913 was the downfall of American society, because it starts the modern day income tax. Of course, we have the income tax during the Civil War. That's when it's invented by the Republican Party, and it's a progressive income tax. So there's three different brackets by the end of the war. A business Supreme Court later declares that unconstitutional. I'm not going to go to the whole history of the income tax, although it's really interesting, and someday I'll write about it for you. But I think what you see here is Trump basically trying to take money from the American people, which is what the tariffs do, in order to provide relief for people who are paying income taxes. And there we are back to the idea of lower income taxes for the very wealthy. You simply put tariffs on things so that individual consumers are paying that money, and all of a sudden you don't have to worry so much about giving tax breaks to the very wealthy. But we're not developing here a picture of a president who's actually working for the American people. And I kind of wanted to call that out today, because he's also, I'm sorry, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? So what's going on here? Why is he being so supported by enabling policy? And I think that idea that he is moving money upward, that he is cutting taxes for the very wealthy, he's cutting regulations, he's open drilling land, and he is trying to fund the government first by cutting programs, but also by shifting the weight of our revenue system back to the ordinary Americans on where it was in the late 19th century, that changed in 1914. I think you're seeing a group of people saying, I don't care if he falls asleep everywhere or is posting crazy on social media, any of that stuff. I'm happy to keep him because he's really helping us rich people. I think that's one of the things, but I also think you can see the degree to which the Republicans double down on the Democrats are anti-American, are bad for society, and you can really see how they embrace the evangelical right, the radical right, that after the about 1965, when you got the legalization of the use of contraception by married couples, it becomes illegal for unmarried couples after 1972. You can see this emphasis on sort of returning the world as they imagine it to a previous, again, imagined world that meant that women wouldn't take on roles outside the home. And focusing on that and really making abortion the symbol of that, reproductive rights the symbol of that, so thoroughly tied that evangelical vote to the Republican Party that now they're sort of in lockstep, the idea that only Republicans should have the right to rule, that no matter how good a Democrat is, no matter what they do for the country, and again, I just have to emphasize that the Biden administration was one of the most productive administrations in our history. No matter what they do, they are illegitimate. And I could walk you through that at more length, but I'm actually going to run out the door so Joanne and I can make it to this gig that we got to go to. But I want to leave you in one other place, and that's that it certainly feels like that is starting to crack. And what I mean by that is that you can see the degree to which the administration is trying to weaponize the Department of Justice, right? He's really using the Department of Justice to go after those people he perceives to be his enemies, pretty clearly hoping that there will be really splashy trials this summer that will make it look like indeed the Democrats are really bad guys. But increasingly, you can see judges saying, we don't trust you anymore. We can't trust what you say because you've weaponized the Department of Justice. And so one of the things that's happened in the last couple of days is that the judge has really questioned the Department of Justice's indictment of David Hearn, who was the former Olympian who reached down into the reflecting pool and touched a piece of it. And they tried to say he had done damage to the reflecting pool, that he was a vandal. And the government's own witness now is saying that, in fact, Hearn didn't appear to do anything to cause any additional damage to it. And that's very much sort of on the table for poor Mr. Hearn, who wouldn't have touched that? Maybe you wouldn't have, but I don't know. I don't want to see what it felt like. And it's pretty clearly that he is being railroaded over this, because they wanted people to believe that there was actually vandalism on that reflecting pool. But then the other place that you are seeing things is with the Epstein files. And this is going to be really something to watch, because Katie Phang, who's an independent journalist, actually sued Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, who is up for confirmation before the Senate right now, to get him to release a number of actual documents from the Epstein files, which by law he had to do by last December 19th. And the Department of Justice had to do, and they over redacted them and then refused to release a lot of them. She sued and said, I want to see why these are redacted. And a judge said the end of last week that he ordered Blanche to show him by himself, if Katie Phang can't see these, to show him those documents and to explain why they were redacted. And the judge could come out and say, yeah, you're right, they should have been redacted. But the judge could also come out and say, you should never have done that. And because the Epstein Files Transparency Act says by law you could only redact the names of victims, and anything else that was part of an active lawsuit, although I'm not even sure is that. It might just have been the names of victims. And these things are largely redacted. That's probably not what they've done. And so you're starting to see the rubber meeting the road, in that either Todd Blanche is going to have to produce this as the law requires, or he's going to tell the judge he's not going to do it. And we are really in a mess if that happens, because he will be openly saying, I'm not going to follow the law. I'm not going to do what the judge says. And so it's worth watching that right now. But it's also worth paying attention to the fact that I think the larger picture of what we're seeing is not just Trump melting down. It's this entire project of only the Republicans get to rule, because they're going to cut taxes and cut regulations, which is what the very wealthy want, and because they're going to try and rebuild this fantasy of a traditional America, which is what the really loyal Trump voters want. You're seeing that, and you're seeing a lot of Americans sitting here going, where are my tax dollars going? Which I have to say is a big issue for me as I'm watching all this stuff. Did you see the thing today about how many Escalades he has just ordered? Which were really expensive. I looked it up. If you took the average cost of a fairly cheap Escalade, the cost was over $62 million. Don't write that down. I just literally pulled up my phone and started typing in numbers. But you're seeing ordinary Americans going, what's the point of a government that is literally taking our money and using it for things like bombing these guys in the Caribbean for who knows why, for this war in Iran that appears only to have injured us by raising prices by both of oil and of groceries and of everything that comes into any products that we buy. At the same time, it's killing thousands of Iraqis and Iranians. And at the same time, we're losing Americans, we're losing more money, and now we've got another set of tariffs. And it just sort of feels like we're in this period where Trump and his inability to function, basically, seems almost to be a larger symbol of the Republican Party in this moment, where it's all falling apart. And that's not to say it's not incredibly dangerous. They're still trying desperately to hammer through the idea of rigging the vote by trying to get some aspect of the SAVE Act or whatever, and that certainly could still happen. But the bigger picture here, where we've got so much stuff coming at us, just seems like, what are we doing here, folks? And it seems like more people are looking at the diarrheal lettuce and the rise of measles and, the many ways in which our society is falling apart around us are starting really to re-examine what government is supposed to do, and they're not finding it in Donald Trump. And if that means that we start to abandon that decades-old idea that somehow Democrats are illegitimate and Republicans are the only legitimate rulers, that's actually exactly what happened in the late 19th century and led to the rise of the progressive era and the whole first half of the 20th century being dominated, really, with a few very brief exceptions, by the Democratic Party. Chats on Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Maine time on both my YouTube channel and my Facebook page. If you want to hear more from me, I write Letters from an American every night. It's available on Substack and on Facebook, and the audio version of the nightly letter is available the following day wherever you get your podcasts. And finally, on Saturday mornings, I talk with Dr. Joanne Freeman, a historian of the professor and dear friend. We call our talks What the Heck Just Happened, and you can find them on YouTube. Politics Chat is produced by Lauren Westfall, music by Andrea Von Camp.
I don't shoot.
Вот ну ёбок, а! Да сдохни ты уже там, пидор! Point C! Reds, you fuck! От медведя еще никто целым не уходил! Вот хуй! Point C! No, stop! Push forward! Point C's theirs now! Point C belongs to me! Point A's theirs now! You knocking us? Speed up! To the points! Reds, we're at point A! Waiting for Blue's counter! Reds, Blue, what's next? Nice one! Control point C now, Reds. Reds, didn't they tell you to Blue? Reds took point C from Blue. Check! Good! Mortar! Reds, take the win!
Hey, Kevin Rollins here, target individual of 8 years, maybe over 10. Started either July 4th of 2016 or December 17th of 2018. I got street theater around me constantly right now. I feel like I'm in a Truman Show. This is totally bullshit. Everyone I've met in a few weeks now is like a cop or a fed or something, and they're entrapping me. That's for sure. They're drug dealers. They're homeless people. They're people buying my artwork. They're everywhere, and they're following me around doing this big play, and it's really disgusting stuff. And I just want, they stole my list. I have 237 ideas, and they stole every last one of them. They didn't give me $20, which I said they were gonna give me $100 billion in gold just a couple days ago again for the list, and it's worth more than that. That's for sure. I got green energy on there, magnet wheel, turbines, as well as on our water pressure turbines, and this is endless green energy I'm talking about. And these people just gotta go. I'm sure I'll be arrested for flipping out, but and for drugs, but I'm innocent. I mean, these people are forcing it on me, you know, and it's bullshit. They want it on Cash App and stuff, and it's bad, dude. I like to pray for all the targeted individuals out there, and if you never hear from me again, probably dead or in prison. So, God bless everybody. Yeah, they activated me in Oregon. They've just been running game on me for 10 years straight. And I'm fucking sick of this shit. They're sexually assaulting me daily and set me up. They're hacking my air conditioner. They're outside my windows. They're fucking on my property every fucking chance they get. They're in my house with cloaking technology. And this is just completely bullshit. I don't know what to do. I can't call the police, they're in on it. I can't call the FBI, they're in on it. The CIA's in on it, and local law enforcement. I said already is in on it, of course. I don't know. This is a fascist state, man, and a totalitarian one. And they think they can blackmail me into cooperating non-stop the whole time, and I've been knocking blind the whole time. And so this is what I get for it, I guess. Standing up for myself and trying to watch my civil rights and my Fourth Amendment especially. So, I don't know what to say. I'm worn out. Had a long night. And now I have to deal with the police probably. So, I'll see you later. I'm pretty sure my drug dealer is a cop. Yeah, isn't that weird? If not two of them are. And, yeah, I get bigger problems than drugs, that's for sure. But I don't know what else to do. Just keep trying to do what I can do. And it's not good enough. Peace out, everybody.
Gentlemen, I welcome you to the
First off, I want to say
Get ready for
I hate
the glorious
rushing into these
battle.
videos and just posting anything because I hate putting out misinformation and falsified information. You know, even though it's what I'm going through and what I'm experiencing, I do believe that a lot of times this computer program uses us target individuals to put out information so it can use that information to further along the torture and the movement of the people further along into their program. They use it, you know, just like the internet, all the falsified information we get on the internet, just to further along us into this program, whichever direction they may be going, because everybody's going in a different direction. But coincidentally enough, we all cover the same stuff, you know. But one thing that stands out to me that the more I think about it, is that, you know, I told y'all that it controls your beliefs and your non-beliefs, and I believe that the belief and non-belief of every target individual is the most widespread challenge, if you want to call it, or part of the program, or study, or whatever you want to label it as. That is the most widespread part of this program that they are doing on almost every target individual at one time or another. And I believe, in me personally, in my life, that has been the most concentrated part of this program that has concentrated on and stuck to for the longest in so many different ways. It's challenged my belief system, you know, and even from God to stupid stuff, you know, like, my significant other sleeping with my stepfather. I mean, just, it goes like Brian too says, from one side of the spectrum to the other, and it covers everything in between, you know, from the most non-believable situation or scenario, or as they call it with me, a storyline, all the way to the most believable. And it tries to change your beliefs. It tries to change your beliefs to what they want you to believe. And it's all, I believe it's all part of the mass control, you know, the movement of everybody in this country and most of the world, and making them believe what they want them to believe. And it's all about mass control, you know, not only as target individuals, but for everybody. I believe this is in everybody, you know, I mean, all the way to God, Jesus Christ. I believe that with the words of God weapon, they're moving all kind of Christians where they want them to be. But, so, if you have any comment or anything, just inbox me.
So I want to document a day in the life of a targeted individual's life by outlining my day today. And I'm a victim of neurotrafficking. So I woke up this morning a little after 7 a.m. I had a fair amount of biofilm on my skin and crawling all over my skin. I've been infected almost every single night of my life, but that's until a few years ago that this is the cause of all my life. It's unnecessarily difficult. I also woke up in a foul mood that was beyond the scope of the parasites. So I just had a lot of negative energy. It's not mine. It's being projected on me. Through the directed energy weapons, send subliminal messages. That destroy your self-esteem and your ego and your mood, and try to put you in this fearful, angry state of mind. And, combined with all the sabotage of your life, it really wears you down. It really wears you down. Anyways, I bounced back after a couple hours of that. I grounded, listened to music, drank my coffee, had my breakfast, and then I stopped to shower, of course, wash out all the parasites off my skin, and then went to the nonprofit where I spend a lot of time at, and okay, a couple hours until lunch. We had lunch there, and then after that, they started hitting me hard with these directed energy that were really disrupting my mood. And then they love to hit me with parasites right after I eat. So right after lunch is right when I started getting my noticeable parasitosis again, and then the directed energy weapons that were causing a sort of low-level fatigue and a lot of irritability and things like that. And so I decided to take off from there, and rather than head home, I went to downtown Houston, and I went to the main library. I hadn't been there in a while. Library, and I've been highly targeted at this library for many days, especially when I was living on the streets. And this is when my parasitosis amped up. I would move around, hang out in one spot in the library. First I was on the 6th floor. It's the main library in downtown Austin. That's 6 floors, and they have this viewing deck. It's really a beautiful library, very nice facility. But anyways, started out there until symptoms got too bad, and then moved to another location, and another location, and then I went and took a walk, which wasn't too far away. Got a little bit of food, ate some food, but the entire time I'm just crazy irritable about my energy levels, irritability, and all this other thing. It's just and fatigue, and it's these programs, these weapons, the parasites the directed energy weapons, are designed to wear a person down until they this is just one factor, and I was born into this. Although the day and night parasitosis didn't start until about 7 years ago. Back then it was only slept unknowingly, and then I'd wake up with all the biofilm and everything. But I've been hit with it day and night all the time. Going back to taking standardized tests from the SAT to anything else, or doing job interviews and stuff. Somehow I don't know if it's through somebody in the area or if it's through satellites or something. They target these weapons so that flop in any order in my life. Or a court case or something, court appearance or something, anything that's important. My life has been just set up failures and flops. Anyways, I hung out around the library for and then eventually I wanted to do some other things while I was downtown, but I was worn down. Which is just transparent parasites that nobody else can see. So all of these attacks are directed at me, and nobody around me is aware of either these energy frequency weapons, electromagnetic frequency weapons at me, or parasites on my skin. And so the all of these times, while my nervous system's completely dysregulated, my brain is fried, and my moods, do my best to mask my suffering and mask the symptoms and how disrupted my nervous system is. As you can imagine, it's impossible to maintain any sort of employment. And I can't do any entrepreneurial work because I have a complete shadow ban, and anything I do is always thwarted. And I have a long list of career sabotage, education sabotage. I mean, they started sabotaging my work back in high school when I was babysitting. And they would hit me with directed energy weapons so badly when I was babysitting that I would fall asleep as soon as the parents left before I put the children to bed. And then the parents would come home and I would be passed out because the directed energy, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I would just pass out, and I didn't know why. And the kid would be up, and I would be passed out, and the parents would be pissed off. And you think they called me back? No. This was in Cairo, Egypt, and that was really the only way as an American living in a foreign country in high school that I could make any money. And that's been the case with every single job I've ever had. It's been sabotaged every single. Anyways, I just wanted to sort of, and then I came back here. I was just tired and grumpy and cursing God, and I'm just wondering when all this crap is going to come. The COINTELPRO, the targeted individual programs, these programs have to stop. People behind them are completely evil.
Ну и нахуя так делать, что я тебе сделал, блядь?
And secret cult members who run these programs. Unfortunately, the government has endless amounts of resources, and so do these secret societies. And because of this, and they know how to manipulate anybody. They'll collect and find any way to manipulate somebody to turn against me. So either by paying them or slandering my name or promising them some career opportunity or something that will benefit them. It's just really exhausting. It doesn't matter if it's anybody who I put my trust in, basically since 6th grade, has betrayed me. Or if they haven't betrayed me, everything has been done to sabotage the friendship through bringing in Freemasons that's their explicit goal, is to break up the connection that I have with a person with a pure soul. And these type of people are very, very few and far between. But there are, this has been my day today, and I just woke up not just, about an hour ago, I woke up from a nap. I'm just really groggy. I'm having a little bit of coffee to try to bounce back from this parasitosis and these dew attacks. And I'm pretty groggy right now, but these programs can't go on forever, and the American people, the people across the world, because this is not limited to the United States.